Hey, what's up,
Yo,
Chris?
what's up?
Hey, is this a telemarketer? Or a
No, it is
spammer?
not. No, it is not.
That's what's coming
Yes.
up on my phone.
No.
When you guys
It is a
are trying to call me.
telemarketer, and we want to ask you one question. Do you
What?
have any hot news?
I have a lot of hot news, and it's funny because I'm glad you guys actually finally called me at the time you're going to call me. I've been waiting by the phone at 5 p.m. Eastern for the last 3 Mondays, as per the arrangements that we made. So I'm starting to think that maybe somebody over on your guys' end is trying to make a joke and trying to take the piss out of me. Is that the truth? And is it you, Disco?
First of all, what you're doing already is you're delivering false narratives and fake news. You know very well that you've ignored us repeatedly. You've ignored my repeated request for Abby to apologize for calling me a dweeb and other slanderous comments in your books and on these podcasts. And also the slanderous promo you cut on me on the Jericho cruise, where you had people using foul language to
Inciting violence, which I was a big fan
against
of.
me and stuff and everything. And I just think that, I think that you have been ignoring us because you've been scared to come on this show. It's like just like the situation that we have where Konnan tells me that some of the AEW performers are not allowed to come on this show because I'm on it, because you guys are collectively scared of me for some reason. And I think you have a chance to kind of finally defend yourself against these accusations and eventually just apologize for all the slanderous and nasty things you've been saying about me over the years.
Well, let me ask you a question, Disco. Do you, at this point, have A, a passport, B, a driver's license, or C, any type of international identification?
I've got the driver's license. I didn't even get a passport.
Oh, okay.
I haven't had to get. I got the documentation to get the passport, though.
Well, that's a step
But
ahead.
you know what I
Good,
didn't have?
good.
I didn't have a birth certificate. That was the whole issue, was over the birth certificate not showing up.
Bro, you went on the Vince Russo show and you said you did not go on the show purposely because people were burying you, and Paul Lazenby, security to the stars, including Chris Jericho, who has who lives in a mansion and needs a forklift to move his fish tank.
Right.
Okay. He is a bodyguard for one, Chris Jericho. Paul, security to the stars, Lazenby.
That's what I heard too. That was the rumor going around, that you just didn't want to show up because you were scared. Don't forget too.
Well, first of all, if that's the case,
Ted Irvin.
If you're admitting
That's right.
that
Ted Irvin called you out on the cruise. Wait one second, Jericho. I want you to hear the hideous language that your dad used on Disco, which in the 50s would have been on site.
Yeah.
He called him a punk, a twerp. What else?
And a wimp.
A wimp.
And a wimp.
A wimp. Yeah.
He called me a wimp.
Yeah. In the 50s, in the 50s, if you called someone a wimp, that was the lowest of the low, followed by punk.
Yeah.
So that was the two biggest insults. That's like calling someone like a trap hoe now or something.
It's bad. Yeah.
So he gave me some threats as well, Disco. So, anyways, enough about Disco. Let's talk about me.
Okay.
That's tremendous.
What let me ask you a question. How's it been working? Give me the experience, like compared to the WWE of working with AEW right now. The basic differences, like positives, negatives. Like, what's your take?
Classic Disco, by the way, where he answers his own question right after he asks it. But honestly, the biggest difference is the creative freedom, I think. And I'm not saying that in a burial of the WWE system. It's the way it is. There's a lot of writers, and there's approvals, and there's a lot of levels of government that you have to go through to get something done. And you could have the best idea in the world. Once it goes through the approval process, that 100% idea might be down to 75% or 65%. Always has to have a slant put on it, it seems. AEW, it's not the case. A good idea is a good idea. Most of the stuff that you see me do comes from my brain or from a collaboration with Tony Khan or with Cody Rhodes or with Nick Jackson or whoever it may be. But it's not like they're working against it. We're working for it. And there's been very few times when there's been disagreements. Obviously, Tony's the boss. What he says goes. But there's very few disagreements. If he knows that you have an idea that you really feel passionate about, he most of the time goes with it because he's a real open thinking type of guy. So it's it's a lot more, I guess, just like I said, a lot more freedom and allowing artists to be artists. After 30 years of doing this, I think I know kind of what to do, and I'm being allowed to do that.
Let me ask you a question. So back when you, let's go back to 96, okay, and WCW, you knew how the climate was there, basically. You have 12 minutes, you got an 8-minute match, and they're giving you 4 minutes pre-match for an interview. And you would basically just come up with your own promo, because you would cut a good promo, stuff, and thing. Like, like we did the list of 1,000 holds and stuff. We would all collaborate on it. Like, there wasn't any writers or anything. It was just like the boys just getting, and like you went out there and did your promo, okay? And everybody in WCW kind of had the creative freedom for their promos, right? But when did it transition? Because you worked in WCW, went to WWE and stuff. When did the transition take place where they took your freedom away from your promo and had other people starting writing for you? When did that take? What do you remember? Like a year or a period of time when that started taking place and that changed?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you the exact period of time. When I started in WWE, if you talk about the famous...
the clock countdown, you and The Rock. You're right, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was all me. I wrote that, I remember, on the floor of my apartment, on the bedroom floor, just wrote it all down. And The Rock and myself and Vince Russo went over it, just to kind of, so they could see what I was going to be saying. And Rock threw in a couple lines, and Vince threw in a couple lines, and that was it. There was no discussion with anybody else. There was no rehearsal. There was no let's check for camera angles or anything like that, which is the exact opposite of how they do things now. Pretty much right after that, I remember they brought Brian Gewirtz in, and that was probably, I'd say, less than 6 months after I started is when writers started coming in. And, it's done as a positive to help work together, to put together the best stuff you can. But then it's suddenly morphed into relying completely on writers to hand guys scripts. And obviously, it's Vince's world, so Vince has probably decided he wanted it to be more like a sitcom, like Friends or Seinfeld or something like that. Meanwhile, as you all know, nobody can write a promo for you better than you can. So it kind of just started a big quagmire of writers versus guys when everyone's supposed to be working towards the same thing, but they pretty much are at odds because of it, as a result.
And that's a huge mistake, because at the end of the day, when the Hardy Boys were really hot with the Delete thing, and then, Joey Janela was doing his shit with Spring Break, and Sammy Callahan was doing his shit with Pancakes and whatever, Pile Drivers, whatever it's called, you are now seeing wrestlers taking control creatively in what their vision was. And it was like, bro, a lot of these guys are really creative. Why aren't you taking what they have to say into account? Makes your job easier, number one. You know what I'm saying? And I just felt, because there were a couple of times, let me say real quick, when Rey Mysterio did that thing with Cody Rhodes about the mask, remember?
Yeah,
I don't know if you remember that. Well, Rey had asked me if I could write. Yeah, so I had written a lot of that for him. And I sent it over, then they kind of used like what they wanted, but they changed so much that I was, bro, if you would have done this like it was written, this shit would have been bomb. You know what I'm saying? And so that's a big problem where I think, Chris, and this is one of the biggest problems, you're trying to keep your job. And so if it isn't your idea, it isn't good. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and another thing, too, is that we're not just talking about promos here. I'm talking about angles. I'm talking about, as of right now, I know exactly what I'm doing all the way up until January 15th, and that's only because there's a couple of things we have to put in to place, but pretty much up until the end of February, I know what I'm doing and where I'm going and what's going to be happening every week, and it never changes. So That's another thing that I'm talking about, the long-term planning of storylines and angles, which obviously, even if you can get your promos written properly and do good promos and that sort of thing, the actual angles and storylines are something that basically never really get called out in WWE. They might have a certain idea, but it changes so much, and even Chris Jericho's not really involved in it. I mean, I would be, but this is me being involved in every step of the way. So that's another thing that I love about it. I don't have to worry about every week, like, what am I doing this week? And some weeks I'd be like, what the hell does that have to do with anything? That sucks. And then I'd have to go talk to Vince and change it to something better. But it's a lot of mental stress to have to go through that every single
time
week.
And wasting time, bro, and energy.
Exactly, wasting time and energy, and it's not the case anymore. So it really makes it a lot easier to go to work and a lot more fun because for example, what we're doing this week with the Thanksgiving thank you celebration for Le Champion. I mean, I came up with that 3 months ago, and it's all in place. I know exactly what I'm going to do. Don't have to worry about trying to find anything or get anything done, or it's all taken care of and it's all organized. And that's a really cool feeling because, like you said, it takes a lot of the pressure and the stress away from having to worry about that sort of stuff.
And not only that, you're writing your own shit. And the thing is, that when you bring it to the other guys, you're not having to worry about, okay, who's going to put holes in it, who's going to bury it. You know that they're going to make it better. You're going to bring it to somebody and they're going to say, you know what, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? They're just going to find a way to make that idea better. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, exactly. And you're totally right. So it's just one of the things that makes it a lot easier for professionals to be professional in AEW.
Well, hang on. Let me finish. I want to continue with this.
Can you ever get wording with this guy?
No, I'm just saying that. I want to continue with this part of the conversation because I never worked for WWE, so I never really knew that writers structure where you have a bunch of writers and stuff. When you were there like if you